I suppose going into the game against Connacht, there was a lot of expectation. They'd finished the season off okay. Granted, hadn't played particularly well, but nobody expected Connacht to come and put in a half decent performance and turn us over in Belfast. I think something to allude to here is the crowd. Yet again, there was lots of empty seats. We all know that the quarterfinals playoffs aren't part of the season ticket package, and I think a lot of people were just happy enough to sit in the house and watch it. Maybe that's because everyone expected Ulster to win. Like if that had been an Ulster Leinster semi-final in Belfast, you could be sure it would have been sold out. It would have been a really raucous crowd getting into it, and it wasn't at all. It was really flat, and maybe the players fed off that as well. I said before the game, I was working the game. I said if Ulster win, then all these rumours and rumblings of discontent within the Ulster camp will be forgotten about, and they'll go into pre-season next year, and it'll all be the cracks will be papered over. And if they lose, then it'll be front and center of newspapers, of social media, of you and I talking here today, about the discontent if they lose. And yet again, on the big stage, in a playoff game, they've come up short, and they didn't just come up a little bit short. They were absolutely dominated the whole way across the pitch, every facet of the game. The breakdown, as you know, was destroyed by the Connacht side. Seamus Hurley-Langton was unbelievable. Conor Oliver just did what he normally does week in and week out. Prendergast had a really strong game. Jack Carty was very average, and yet Ulster still couldn't get it into gear. They could not find anything. There was no big hits. There was no intensity in anything that they were doing, and they could have snuck it at the end. They actually could have won the game at the end, and I think Connacht would have felt really hard done by if that had happened. But yeah, it's there's something going on at Ulster with the player exodus announced 5 days before the game. Today, I look on my social media. Ulster put out a tweet wanting to, asking for season ticket holders to renew their season tickets. Why are you doing that straight after your team have just been knocked out and put in probably the worst performance of the year? And if a lot of supporters and people who spend money week in and week out feel a little bit let down by the performance of the side, and it just doesn't add up for me. It all seems a bit weird. And reading some of Bernard Jackman's quotes, he's talking about another rebuild at Ulster, and Dan McFarland's going to have to be the guy to do that. So with all these guys leaving, I know there's a lot of young guys coming through. They're going to have to take this on. They're going to have to drive Ulster rugby over the next couple of seasons. It's not the case now where you can go out, you can sign a Johan Muller, a Ruben Pinar, John Afoa. Those days are long gone. We've got our couple of players in Stephen Kitskoff and Dave Ewers. There might be one more added, but apart from that, there's going to be a lot more homegrown players that are going to get opportunity next season. But hey, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe this is a wake-up call for where how much time, effort, resources, money is going to have to be put into this province to make sure that we try and close that gap in Leinster. Because one of the questions that was posed by a good friend of mine, Stephen Watson, who works for BBC Northern Ireland, to Dan McFarland in his post-match press conference was, do you think Ulster have got better this year than last year because they didn't get to a semi-final this year? They got bowled out one round earlier. And do you think you're going backwards? I think was the question. And I think his reply was, this is not the time and place to answer this. So, which is a fair comeback, and it's a completely fair reply. But the honest question, the honest answer is that they have went backwards because they have underperformed in larger parts during this season. Yes, granted they finished second, but they've underperformed. That massive blip, and the blip, did it ever go away? I think if they had played better teams towards the end of the season, we would have seen that blip return with more of a vengeance. So for me, it's a seriously reflective season for Ulster, where the next couple of months, coaches, players, Johnny Petrie, who come out on social media again. I don't know what directors or CEOs of rugby teams are doing on Twitter, but that's his own prerogative. He can do what he wants. Come out and said about, we really appreciate the support, but some of the messages that he's received, and the negativity, but like that comes part and parcel with the job when your team doesn't perform, and especially the expectation that we all have here in Ulster, especially when you finish second in the league, you've got a home quarter final and possibly a home semi final to come. So, yeah, real disappointment. Everybody in Ulster's deflated. Season's over. Everybody's packing, and you have Connacht and Stormers and Leinster playing in big games in front of big televised audiences. Like, this is the other thing is, Donny, this is that was a brilliant opportunity for Ulster's Irish players to really stand out, to really say, hold on, Andy Farrell, I'm one of these guys that's really going to make a dent in your World Cup squad. Pick me, pick Nick Timoney over, Prendergast. No, that was so far off the mark. The boys were just not at the races. And fair play to Connacht, they completely get stuck into them. And Mike McCarthy made a point on comms with myself, and he said it just looked like Connacht just wanted it that little bit more. And if you go through the team, we know that Ulster are probably slightly better coached team. They've got more skill, they've got better players, more experienced players, World Cup winners. But that counts for nothing if you don't want it. That counts for absolutely nothing if you don't have the rock up the Kingspan with the physicality and the mindset of beating anybody. Doesn't matter if it's Zebra coming on a Friday night or it's Connacht coming in a quarter final. And they gave their worst performance at the wrong time. Yeah, it's pretty big, and that's a really, really strong point that you made there about the players wanting to play for their coach and wanting to put everything on the line for their coach. And yet it felt like it was the opposite for Ulster. It felt like it's completely wrong of me to say that it looked like they didn't care, but it looked like when they made a mistake on the pitch that there was nobody making that person accountable. We always talk about the leadership in Ulster. Is that a problem? I think it is a problem, especially when Ian Henderson isn't playing. And yeah, it's I know we're trying to talk about Connacht here, but that's a really, really good point that the boys like Hurley Langton, the way he come onto the ball, the way he was tackling, the way he was getting over the ball, it just looked like he wanted to give Andy Friend every single molecule of energy that he had in his body. And the Ulster side of things, that didn't look like it. But Connacht have got their work cut out now. They have a big travel. I seen Finlay Beelan posting a thing on Instagram, and he had made it into 3A, so he was in business class with the feet up, sipping on a lovely orange juice. So that's exactly the travel that they need: comfort and make sure their bodies are right, because that was as much as it wasn't the highest spectacle in terms of rugby ability playing against Ulster. It was very physical, the amount of injuries and niggles and that come out of that game. So it was all about rest and recovery. And I'm sure Andy Friend and the lads, there'll be no hard training sessions out in South Africa. It'll all be, the finer details, making sure when they rock up against the Stormers that they can put in another hell of a shift. And if you get through that game, then you've got the week off, and then you can rebuild for the final. But yeah, like the way the Stormers played against the Bulls, not many people are giving Connacht a chance, but when you have the fight, the belligerence that they have, it's they're a match for anybody when they turn it on. If Pete's torn his bicep, there's a chance that he could still play. That could be something that he just grims and bears it over the next few weeks, and then he might need surgery. If he does, he might be out for a couple of months, back in time for the Rugby World Cup, etc. But if you thought that was the case and he was going to need surgery, or it was going to be a bit longer than everyone expected, surely the RFU would say, no, this guy is not playing. He's a big part of our Rugby World Cup squad here and trying to achieve success there. Let's leave him out. But hopefully it's not as bad as everyone first feared. And, the warrior that's Pete is able to get back on there and captain the side and give it a real go. One thing that I will say about this Munster and Leinster game is that Munster have to do something different. They can't just go out there and play their own game and hope that Leinster don't turn up and Leinster have a bad day. If they do that, they will get beaten. And I think the margin at the minute is 14 points. And I think everybody will be lumping on Leinster minus 14 the way that they're playing at the minute. Leo Cullen will probably make another few changes, bring another couple of lads in, freshen it up. He has the luxury to do that. But Munster have to do something different. They have to. What that is, I'm not 100% sure, but they cannot take them on up front, especially with RG Snyman, Peter O'Mahony probably going to be missing, Dermot Barron in the at hooker. He looks like, he went off with an HI. He might be missing. Conor Murray's definitely missing. Calvin Nash is definitely going to be missing. Malachi Fekatoa is definitely going to be missing. So it's whether or not they go to a real, strategic kicking game, but you're not really going to see that with Craig Casey at 9. So I think Graham Roundtree's got his work cut out to come up with a plan that's going to cause Leinster a few problems and hopefully upset them in some shape or form. But it's really hard to look past the Leinster double in the URC and the Heineken Champions Cup, because they're a formidable side, a huge squad to pick from, relatively healthy as well. And, playing in the Aviva every week certainly helps that too. Yeah, no, I don't think it has any impact whatsoever. To be honest, sometimes it's maybe the head coach is playing a few mind games to try and get one or two decisions to go their way, and the supporters on social media that jump in and rally behind that as well. But Frank Murphy will have another couple of layers of fake tan on at the weekend, ready and raring to go. He'll have the beard trimmed to perfection, the haircut. He'll go to the local barbers and get them all sorted. I caught up with him after the game, him and Andrew Brace, up in Belfast. And obviously, Andrew Brace gave 18 penalties against Ulster, come under huge flack, but after reviewing the game, going through a lot of them, there might have been one call that could have went their way with the McCluskey, Conor Oliver situation where the penalty went for in Connacht's way. But those guys have got a hard job. They know that they can't make mistakes at this level because it can be very, very costly. And I think Frank Murphy generally has been a very good referee. I just hope that there isn't another red card or a yellow card or 50-50 decision. And as much stick and slack that Wayne Barnes gets, and even in the Ireland-France game when he only yellow carded Antonio, but he didn't ruin the game, and a lot of these, high tackles are coming in at the side and there's a head-on head of the ruck. It's a rugby incident, and I think he understands that a lot more and goes with his own gut feeling on it instead of just looking at the laws book and saying, this is it, he has to go off. And again, the Gallagher Premiership has seen a few of those decisions go against him, and it does spoil the game. So hopefully Frank Murphy, uses he was a half decent rugby player in his time, knows the game inside out, and hopefully some of these big calls are evenly spread across both sides, and we get a really good game.